Hey guys, welcome back to Firearms and Fellowship. I'm joined by my good buddy Nibs from Walnut and Steel. How are you
Sure.
doing, Nibs?
I'm doing good. How about
Did
yourself?
I'm doing good. Did you have a good Independence Day?
Yeah, it was pretty good. I was home in bed by the time it was dark out. But
Awesome. So, hey,
uh,
we're gonna talk. We said on the last podcast we talked a little bit of Mossberg. So, we're gonna look at some Mossberg rifles tonight. Nibs has quite a few of them to show us. I've got a couple, and we're also gonna talk a little bit about some ammo and touch on some scope talk later in the segment. So, Nibs, why don't you kick us off with some Mossberg, bud?
great. Yeah. Hi, Jeremy. So first, I wanted to ask you. I actually meant to ask you before we started up. How is your weather down there? It's been pretty hot here. Probably not hot like you're hot, but
Man, like the last couple of weeks have been absolute scorchers.
yep.
Heat index like 115.
Yeah.
Um, but on the
We've
fourth, we had a nice little cool front come in.
nice.
It rained for a little bit right before dark, um, so the ground was wet. We were able to shoot off some fireworks and have some cool weather. And I think we've got like highs of 85 for the next week or so.
Yeah,
So
that's not too bad.
yeah,
We've been kicking up into the 90s too, so that's pretty hot for around here.
yeah, for sure. For sure.
Actually, today was a nice cool day. I went out in the morning and did some shooting and some filming and had some fun. But yeah, I I really like to collect these old Mossbergs. So we'll talk about this one first. This one would probably be the last one that I would ever let leave my hands. Last gun probably in the whole house that I would ever let leave my hands.
Really?
This one here is a Mossberg Model 146BA, which is, uh, by itself is just not anything really remarkable. It is a really nice rifle, but this one was made right in the mid 50s. Um, and what's so special about this one is this one actually belonged to my father. Um,
Okay.
it was bought for him brand new back in the mid 50s when he was a young teenager. And it was in his possession the whole time. And then as I was growing up, this was actually the very first firearm that I ever fired. And over the course of my teenage years, I just a rough guess, probably 5,000 rounds through this thing. Uh, just me, myself, and then my brother used it. My father shot it many, many times when he was a youth as well. And then when my father died, my uncle actually inherited several of my dad's guns, and this is one of them. And then my uncle had it for a number of years, and then unfortunately my uncle ended up passing away as well about 10 years ago. And then I was able to get this one back, and I've had it since. Um, Somewhere along the way, my dad had mounted up a really, really cheap scope on this thing, and it was just not really. It was not a nice scope at all. I used it when I was a teenager too. I remember shooting it with the sights, and somewhere along the way, a scope got added. It was a really, really cheap thing. Barely could see through it. Um,
I was
so,
gonna ask you what peep sight is on that one.
so this is a model S130, which is what belongs on there.
Hmm.
And it also has. So when I got it back from my uncle, and I don't remember if the sights were gone, but when I got it back from my uncle, it didn't have any sights on it. It didn't have the front sight, the barrel sight, or the peep sight. It just had that really chintzy scope on there, and I really wanted to put it back. I still need to get some sling swivels for it to put it back in a leather sling for it, and I do intend to do that still too. But when I first started shooting this, it did not have a scope on it, and it had sights on it. When I was probably 10 years old when I first shot this, that was a couple years ago.
That's cool that it came back home.
Yeah, so that's that's kind of my pride and joy, and that kind of kicked me off. I've had that one for a long time. We talked about in the previous one, I had bought that Remington Remington 41P,
Hmm.
and that one kind of spurred my whole collecting of vintage guns. I had already had this one, but that 41P was the one that really kind of spurred everything. I think it's kind of like rabbits. If you get more than two of them in one place, you end up with a million of them. So
Yeah.
um, let's. I'm going to run through these ones I got out here, hopefully pretty quickly. Just let you guys know. Some of the ones that I have. This is just like scratching the tip of the iceberg, but in no particular order, really. I'll just grab them and start talking about it. This is one that I've had for quite a while in my collection as well. Um, this one is so I don't know if you know about Mossberg's model numbers. They have kind of a model number scheme that they use. If it's
Hmm.
so like this is a 46, and the 4 would denote that it is a bolt action, and the 6 would denote that it's a tube feed. And that they kind of followed that scheme all the way along. Later on, when they made this one, they added a 1 to the front of that, but it's still a bolt action tube feed, so it's a 146. The 1 would denote that it has scope grooves on it. So that's
Okay.
the difference. This is an original, like first year of production 46 from around 1935. Um, and
Yeah,
it's it,
talking about the model numbers, we were discussing this before we came on.
yeah,
There's a list floating out there somewhere that shows all the different models and variations, and it is a bunch.
right, right. So there's a site or a thread on Rimfire Central called the Damn Guy site. If you
Yeah.
search for the Damn Guy site, that will come up and you can follow it. And they actually have a list there. You can pick the gun that you think you have, and it'll take you right to that part of it because there's hundreds of pages of information there. Um, and also, if you end up with like a Western field, Mossberg made hundreds and hundreds of models for Sears and Western
Mhm.
Auto and Montgomery Wards, and so
New
there's
Haven. Yeah.
hundreds of cross reference. There's a really nice cross reference guide that would get you, and I have a bunch of Western fields, kind of like those too. This one does have a really cool scope on it. So this scope is a Mossberg number 6, and it is a you can pop this off and take that off and use the peep sights still, but
Okay.
it is an original scope from the same vintage time frame as this gun.
How's the
This one
how's
does
the
have the
clarity on that scope?
this one is not bad. They're hit or miss really.
Yeah.
This one is not bad. I can't remember. I've done a lot of reworks on these. You can actually take these apart. They're not nitrogen filled or anything. You can take these apart, clean the lenses up really well on them, and you can do a lot with these. And you can replace the crosshairs. They're not hard to do.
There's a company out there. I can't remember the name of it. That's what they specialize in is refurbishing those old scopes. I think it's Vintage Scopes might be the name
Yeah,
of it.
there's actually a few. There's ironically, one of the names of the companies that I've heard about is called Iron Sights, and
Mhm.
they refurbish scopes. So
Yeah. So
yeah, that
sometimes
one.
it makes sense to pick up one of those old scopes and have it refurbished.
Yeah, yeah. I've got several scopes that I've got for a very very meager amount because they didn't have any crosshairs left in them. And
Mhm.
when we get to the scope part, I'll grab one and show you that
Yeah.
what it fix. But let's keep rolling so we don't run out of time here. So this, if we can pull the one up that you've got, this one is a really really cool, kind of a newer version, but this one has the T bolt handle. This is
Yeah.
a model 144, just 144, nothing else after that because this one actually has the scope grooves, so it would have a 1 on it. And they started putting the scope grooves on these in 1949. And that's kind of important. When you see this T-bolt handle, you know that this is one of the ones that was made in 1949, because they only did this for that first year. And then they went to a round bolt handle like the one that's on the 146 BA there.
Well, that kind of brings us to the T-bolt that I have.
Yeah.
I don't remember. I think I had just borrowed it or was thinking about purchasing it and had done a video with it. And I wasn't really sold on it one way or the other. But you sent me a message and you were like, "Hey, man, that's a first year because it's a T-bolt."
Yeah, they're pretty rare.
So yeah, I ended up go ahead and purchasing this
Sure.
one.
Yeah.
It's not in super great shape. I haven't done any cleaning on it yet. You know, a lot of times with these, you can take a little bit of tack cloth,
Yeah.
and man, it just makes a world of difference. This one has a Western field, 3 to 6 by 15. That's pretty much hot garbage. Um, the reticle is all wonky. Like if you aim where the reticle is lined up, it'll hit. But yeah, it's. I think I'd probably look for a peep sight to put on this particular rifle. But
Yeah. So that gun that you have and this gun that I have, you can. Both of those models were made for quite a few years, but because they have the T-bolt handle, you can know that they were made. I like that front. You can know that these were made in 1949.
yeah,
And I don't know if Mossberg innovated the scope grooves, but they're the earliest that I can find information on of people that were actually putting the scope grooves on the 11 millimeter dovetails
oh okay,
on their 3/8 inch dovetails on their rifles. So most of the companies didn't start adopting it until like 51, 52. Remington was pretty late to the game, even
yeah.
later than that. So, but that is the 144, really cool.
You know, I have kind of a weird history with these old Mossbergs. Something about having the flip down monopod. I don't know. I guess it just brings a kid out in me, and
Yep,
I've
yep.
always liked them. I've had a few of the semi-automatic varieties,
You like this
and
one?
I've just never had any luck with them. But I really do like this T-bolt. Yeah.
So here, yeah, this is one right here. Again, the wooden handle is a dead giveaway that they're the first year or first edition anyway. Um, I
Yeah,
had
later,
seen,
later ones had the plastic or
yeah,
Bakelite
yeah.
or whatever it is.
So I have seen a couple of versions of the 142 like you have that
Mhm.
have the wooden handle with the round bolt knob. So the wooden handles did kind of roll over into 1950, but they were not going very long. One thing that a lot of people have said to me is make sure you don't let this thing snap
Yeah,
down. It will crack
yeah,
that wood, especially the wooden one. It'll crack that handle. So, uh,
yes, because it
but yeah,
does have some snap to it.
yeah. So one thing this gun here has the original peep sight, and I think this is called an S108 if I remember right.
Okay.
And if you find one with this, snatch it up, especially if it's a good price, because these are most of the time gone on them because people take those off and put a scope on them, and you can't put a scope on them with the. Well, you can actually take that off and flip it around, which I've done on a couple of mine. But most of the people just take them off and then they're lost forever. But these S108 sites sell for a good buck on eBay. So this is the model
Is that
150.
similar to what comes on the Savage NRA? I know that's like a S. That might be like a S102.
Yeah, so this was very specific to this model of little carbine, the 142 and the 152. These are
Yeah.
the only ones that ever had these on there
Okay.
that I know of anyway. So you were talking about kind of refinishing stocks or brightening up your stocks, and I've talked about this on my channel quite a bit, but I don't know if you've ever seen this product here.
I haven't used it.
It's called Howard's Restore Finish.
Okay.
You can buy this at Home Depot. I think you can get it on Amazon. I get all my stuff, all this from, they've got like several different colors. This is golden oak, so it's almost like a clear, but you wipe this on and it will remove years of gunk and tar and wax buildup off your, and it won't damage any finish that I've ran across so far anyway.
Yeah.
But it does have a little bit of tint to it, so if you've got any scratches on your stock, it'll help kind of blend those in. But it really does, it's mostly just a real good cleaner. And it does a really good job of just removing many decades of gunk from your stock, and really does a good job without having to do a restoration on them. So
Yeah. And one thing that George McAllister and I were talking about in our last podcast is those karting wheels,
yeah,
real fine steel wheel that I put mine on my drill press,
yeah,
and you can get just some of that light surface rust,
yeah.
some of a little bit of pitting without damaging the bluing on them.
I
So
really, I
anybody
really, I
check
really
out
like
that
to use
podcast.
brass wool. I've
Yeah.
got 4-aught brass wool, and I bought that
Mhm.
from eBay. I bought a pound of it probably 10 years ago, and I'm just
Yeah.
now getting to the point where I'm looking to buy another pound of it.
Yeah.
So I still have some, but I'm getting low. But I use that as a first resort whenever I'm cleaning up a barrel that's got any rust on it. I use steel wool as a last resort because
Yeah.
you're almost assuredly going to need to re-blue if you use any steel wool on it to try to
Yeah.
remove rust, because steel wool is as hard as the bluing. The
Right.
brass wool is not as hard as the bluing, so
Yeah.
it'll remove rust, but it won't remove. Well, if you put a lot of elbow grease in it, the brass wool will actually remove the bluing as well, but you got to really try.
Right. Yeah.
Let's
It's nice to have some of those little tricks when you're
yeah, yeah.
dealing with these old
I've
rifles.
ruined a couple finishes and I learned my lesson. So,
Me too.
that last one, well, not the last one, the one before the 152 was a 144, and that one was a first year of production. And I thought that would be a good segue into this one, which is actually a very rare Mossberg 22. This one's called the 144 US. And this one was part of a military contract in about 1950 that Mossberg entered in with. And also Winchester and Remington were selling the 75s and the 513Ts
Hmm.
under this same contract. And Mossberg didn't get enough of them out, apparently, and the government, I think, canceled their contract. And a lot of what I've read was only about 2,500 of these were actually ever produced.
Okay.
Um, some say a little bit more than that, but not much more. Mine is actually a 1,200 serial number. So, and they have actually on the Rimfire Central, they have another thread for just this model. And they're looking for everybody to register their serial number on there so they can kind of get an idea of what serial numbers still exist, and pictures of them so they can see what kind of shape they're in.
Yeah.
This one's actually in pretty phenomenal shape for this model, because these were all sent to the military and used hard as military trainers and target guns.
What's going on there at the fore end?
The forend, this little thing here,
Yes, sir.
it's a hand stop. So when you're shooting, you can put your
Okay.
hand out. Yeah, so you're always putting your hand in the same spot when you're shooting offhand.
Is there a way to mount a bipod to that?
Uh, I'm sure you probably could. Um, I've never really looked into it. It's got an adjustment rail there. You can move the hand stop a little bit. It's not
Oh, okay.
terribly adjustable, but I'm sure there's a way that you could I have taken this sling swivel off on a couple and mounted a stud. One of those studs you can mount a bipod onto. A
Right.
couple other ones, but this one is such a rare gun. I would really hesitate to make any changes to it. Still
Yeah.
has the original canvas sling that came from Mossberg to the military.
Yeah, I think this one's probably the original sling too. It's
Yeah,
seen better days, but
yeah, yeah.
kind of neat to have that.
So this one has a couple of distinctions as far as Mossbergs go. The first one is this is the only Mossberg rifle that ever wore Redfield sights.
Okay.
Redfield globe on the front and Redfield number 75. That was part of the military contract that they had to, in Winchester and Remington both supplied them the U.S. property. And I do have a 513 U.S. property and a Winchester 75 U.S. property with the same sights on it. So
Okay.
pretty cool. Nice little set, really. Kind of.
Yeah.
They're all kind of right around the
Well,
same vintage.
while I'm thinking about it, I'm looking for a Williams FP88. If you or anybody you know has one, I think that is
I'm
what
not
we
sure
got
what
one.
that is, but if I
Yeah, the Williams foolproof sight.
okay,
I think the 88 will fit that Marlin 99 I have. I want to put
okay,
a peep
yeah.
sight on. So
I'm not
it's
familiar
still
with it, but I'll look it
there.
up later when we're done and see what. But so yeah, this one. So the other distinction is this one is actually a Model 144. So what, like I said before, with these ones, the Model 1 in the beginning usually denotes that it has scope grooves on it, but this one, per the military contract, was
Okay.
not to have any way to mount a scope on it.
Yeah.
So this one does not have the 3/8 inch dovetails like a one that would denote in any other Mossberg model. So, but a really cool gun, great shooting gun, and it's unfortunate they can't put a scope on it because it's got a monster bow barrel, and I think this thing would be just a tack driver with a scope on it. But
Yeah, for sure.
as rare as it is, I really would hesitate to want to drill any holes in it. Oh, let's see what else I got here. So this one is another one of these T-bolt handles.
Mm-hmm.
This one is it's a tube feed, and this one is a Model 146B. So it's the forerunner to this one that I have that was my father's. This one came out in '49 with the T-bolt handle. This one ran till 54, which is when the 146BA came out. So this one is, I'm still missing the barrel sight. I'm still looking for that, but got the original peep sight on there and the original front sight. So I don't know if you've ever seen or looked at one of these, but this, you can take this hood off of here.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's actually 4 different posts here. You've got there it is.
Oh, okay.
It's got like a little lollipop, but you can flip that down, and it's got other posts you can flip up, like a square post. Come on, there it is. Like a square post, and you can see the lollipops down there. Now you'd slide your hood back on there, and so there's 4 different types of posts there that you could. And they've had this site for. They had that site for decades and decades. Oh, I'll put that back on later. But,
Well, that is neat. I had never seen that.
Yeah, so they came out with that I think in the late 30s, early 40s, and they had. I've got guns that go all the way up into the late 50s that have this same sight on it. So they've produced that for a long, long time. I don't know if they had any into the 60s. I really don't have any. The only gun I have out here that was made past the 50s was I've got a 22 Magnum over here we'll take a look at. And we all know that 22 Magnum didn't come out until 1959. So
Yeah.
All right, so let's keep going here. Let's see, I did that one. Here's another very, very cool. Uh, so we talked about the 144 US, which was a military trainer. This one is actually a 44 US, and this one is so they had a 44 US, and then later they came out with the 44 US A, B, C, and D, which were all civilian products that they came out after they came out with this military issued one. And this one actually says US property and has a serial number right here on the receiver. And again, this one has no provisioning for a weight amount of scope on there. That was, again, part of the military contract. All the other guns that were like this were drilled and tapped here for a side mount, scope mount.
Yeah.
But per the military contract, they were to not have that. So it just has the S100 peep sight. And this one actually has the proper globe on it on the front. I have another one that actually has a Lyman 17A on it, which is the one I like to shoot better because shooting with that post is not as easy.
Yeah.
This one's all original. These were made in like 40, 41. And then shortly after that, they came out with the 146 or 44 USA. And the military did buy some of those 44 USAs, but not very many. Most of them were these U.S. property ones. To find a 44 USA that's also marked as U.S. property is very, very rare. And if you find one, grab it.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty cool. So that brings us to this was like one of the first models that came out with the plastic trigger guard that everybody's real familiar with.
Yeah.
For the Mossbergs. So that's a real cool one. I've got another. Let's see. This one is kind of an anomaly. So when you think of so we were talking about the scheme, the model number scheme a couple of minutes ago, and so a 4 would denote that it's a bolt action, but normally a 2 or a 4 would denote that it is a box mag fed, and a 6 would denote that it is a tube feed. But this one is a very early gun, and it is a model 44. No other designation other than 44, but it is a tube feed. So it is a kind of an anomaly in the whole numbering scheme that Mossberg came out with. So kind of early on, they had a few stutter steps with that numbering scheme, but then in the late 30s and early 40s, they really standardized, and everything was pretty good. But so this one was a model 44, and this was made in like 35 to 37. Pretty cool. Like I said, it's a tube feed. It does have a peep sight on it. There's no barrel sight. And this peep sight is a number 3 peep sight. And if you find a gun that has one of those number 3 peep sights on it, and it's in original condition like this one, I would recommend buying it because, especially if you can get it for a good price, because these peep sights all by themselves on eBay sell for between like $250 and $350 all the time.
Yeah, it's good to know. But sometimes just the sights on these things are worth more than the rifle itself.
So it has an aperture back here on the back, and then it has a spare aperture. It's a little bit different size right here in the adjustment knob. But this one's pretty cool. I found this one I thought it was a mismark on there, and I contacted a friend of mine and he says, buy that gun now.
Yeah. That's got an interesting stock on it. It kind of gets bulbous towards the fore end.
Oh, yeah. They call this like a beaver tail or a semi beaver tail. One of the ones I'll show you here in a minute is got a full beaver tail. So this is a semi beaver tail. The full beaver tail would come all the way back to here. I don't know why they call it a beaver tail, but that's what they call it. How are we doing on time?
No, we're right at about half.
All right. So this is another very rare 22 from my Mossberg collection, and this one does have the full beaver tail. It starts right here and runs thick all the way out to the
Okay.
front. This one is a mag feed, and this one is a model 43S, and the 43S, the S stands for Spiegel. So they made special guns for the Spiegel catalog, and there's a bunch of different models. A lot of the models would have like a special little moniker down here on the wrist, on the bottom of the wrist cap there. But this model never came with that. So, but this is, like I said, a model 43S. This one came from the factory with a Lyman 17A globe on the front and a Lyman peep sight on the back here. I don't remember the model of this Lyman peep sight, but this is a factory original. And this one does have the Mossberg number 4A aperture on the back here, which you can actually spin this little disc and choose one of 4 different size apertures.
Oh yeah.
Into there. And that was a factory option. So this other guns would come with a number 4, which I think I had one out here with a number 4 already. But it was the model 46. That one had a number 4 peep sight on it, but it did not have this adjustable number 4A aperture. But this one, very, very rare. Only seen a couple of these in all of my haunting of Gunbroker and stuff. So another one that I didn't know what it was until I saw it, and then I've got this friend from years from Facebook. His name's Terry. He's actually a machinist. He makes a lot of Mossberg parts, and he's got just a vast Mossberg collection. I've got a ton of Mossbergs, but what he has puts mine to shame. So, let's see, I have one more bolt action, and I think we're doing pretty good. So this one is kind of an anomaly in this whole collection here, but this one's a pretty cool gun from, I would say this is probably right around 1959. This is a Mossberg model 640, and a lot of the 640s, 640K, and most of the ones you would see that are 640s would have a KA, KB, KC, KD. I've never seen another one that's just a 640K. So I'm pretty sure this is a first year of production, which would have been 1959 when 22 Magnum was originally introduced.
What scope is that?
This is a Bushnell Scope Chief.
Okay.
2.5 power, which is right from that same kind of time frame.
Yeah.
So I put that on there myself, but it's a really cool, very, very nice, very clear scope.
Yeah, they made good glass back then.
Yeah, the Bushnells were really, really good back then. So I have let's see, I can't remember which one's which. So this one's a Scope Chief, and then I have another one that looks exactly like this that's called a Scope Master. I think the Scope Chief was the first one. So the Scope Chief, this kind of segues into our talk about scopes, but the Scope Chief was the very first scope that Bushnell imported from Japan in 1952. And then for some reason, they changed the name of it in 1953 to Scope Master. That's what it was. And then from 1952 until whenever they discontinued, decade later or whatever, it was called the Scope Master. But this 2.5X Scope Chief was only 1952.
Okay. Yeah.
That's all the bolt action ones I got out. I've got, a lot more over there, but this is a really good representation of, from oldest to newest, of what I have. So I thought that would be really good.
Yeah, when you brought up that Mossberg made some store brands,
Yeah.
Sears,
Yep.
and I do have a couple that I didn't even think about earlier, that are Mossbergs, but I do have this Mossberg. It's actually a New Haven
Yep. Yep.
600 ET 410 pump.
Yep.
Just really neat old. It's not a Winchester 62 by any stretch, but it's a
Yeah.
good 410, and you can pick
Sure.
these things up just super cheap. A lot of people aren't familiar with the New Haven name; they don't realize that it is a Mossberg. Um,
Yeah.
so a lot of times, you can save $100 or
Yeah.
better
You get
buying
the new you get the
buying
New
the
Havens. You get the New Havens. You get the Western Fields.
yeah.
Boy, I can't remember. They had another name. Um, this next gun I'm going to show you guys is a very very old Mossberg that was actually made for Sears back
Mhm.
in the mid 30s, and so Sears contracted with Mossberg to make this pump action shotgun or pump action 22.
Now that
It
is cool.
is not actually labeled as a Mossberg. It is the only maker mark on it is it says Premier right here where my finger is. Um, and these were made just for a very short time, and then actually Sears canceled the contract with Mossberg and went to Savage, and they made another one that was called a Premier, but it was called a Premier Trailblazer.
Okay.
And that was actually made by Savage in the mid to late 30s. But so these Premiers were made. If you do a little bit of research, Mossberg, the first couple of rifles that Mossberg came out with had letters for a model, letter L, a letter M, a letter K. I think the M was the pump action, and it was the same gun, but they originally made the gun for Sears, and then when they canceled the contract, Mossberg started producing them for themselves and put the put that out. So I actually have two of these Premiers. Just figured I'd only get one of them out, but
Yeah, that is neat. I haven't ever seen one of those in person.
I still have yet to lay my hands on any of the Mossbergs with the letter model numbers, the
Yeah.
letter designation for a model. So but, that is all of the Mossbergs that I brought out to show. Um,
Well, maybe we'll have to do another one, and you can drag some of your other ones out. And now that I'm thinking about it, I know I've got a couple more uh, that I could talk about too.
yeah.
So we'll have to do
One I'd like to do at some point in time is maybe just pump action 22s.
yeah, yeah,
I
that'd
have
be
more pump action 22s than I do Mossbergs. So
yeah. I know pumps are like one of your favorites, and
yeah, yeah.
I got some pretty good ones too. So
I have one whole cabinet that's just full of pump action 22s. So
yeah, that'd be fun. We'll do that. Um, yeah, talking about scopes and particularly the old Japanese glass. In the 70s and 80s,
yeah,
there were some pretty good scopes coming
yeah,
from Japan, and of course, a lot of the American makers they imported their scopes from Japan as well. And I've been kind of on a Tasco kick here lately, just
yeah,
kind of scouring the internet. I run across them at pawn shops and stuff like that, and you can get a pretty good scope for like 20-30 bucks a lot of times.
yep, yep.
What I found was a new old stock Japanese Tasco 4x32. Um, Came in the box, with the bag and of course, some paperwork. Now this one has a copyright of, if I can get it on there, 1981. So in the right time frame.
How's it?
But
How's it look? Looking through it, pretty clear.
oh yeah, yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah,
You know,
this.
I've got a Leupold Vari X2 on
Yeah,
my um, uh, I'm drawing a blank. Anyway, that scope next to this, you can't tell the difference. Like there might be, you know, a little bit better color or
yeah,
something like that, but yeah. So yeah, if you're in a pawn shop or something and you see this gold sticker on a Tasco, you know it's a Japanese made,
yeah.
and it's going to be worlds.
Keep talking. I'm gonna go grab something.
Yeah, it's going to be worlds different from the Chinese stuff that Tasco made later. And you can see here 4x32 Japan AO-58. You know, just a straight four power scope, but for 22s, you know, unless it's a target rifle or something like that, four power is a nice happy medium.
Yeah.
But I found this on eBay for, I think it was $45 shipped to the house, and I was absolutely ecstatic with that.
So
A telescope,
yeah, Tasco spotting scope.
spotting scope, yeah,
And
83,
yeah,
yeah,
this one never been out of the box. Well, except for me to pull it out and look through it.
right,
It's never been set up on the range. This one is a 20-60, and I actually have another one. And if you watch any of my videos, you'd see that one for sure. Anytime I'm using open sights, I pull that one out. It's a
yeah,
15-45, exact same year, but this one's gray, that one's black. But so I bought this one, and then like 2 days later, I found that other one in really nice used condition. So I keep using that one and keep this brand new one in the box.
yeah.
Someday I may need to use it if I ever break that other one. But I actually grabbed that one while I was over grabbing this other box. This is a little scope case here, and so I recently picked up this very, very cool scope, very, very rare scope. This is a Remington branded scope, which Remington did not make very many scopes.
Right.
But this is a 24 XBR, so it is a Remington Arms Company, Ilion, New York, made in USA.
Wow.
24X scope that Remington came out with in 1969 to go on their 40X 22 target rifle specifically. Has an adjustable objective on the front. I'm still looking for a rifle to put it on, but I got this scope for about a tenth of what it's actually worth.
Yeah.
Because it did not have any crosshairs in it, and I was able to repair the crosshairs myself.
Yeah.
And now, so
Yeah,
now it's
that is cool.
yeah. These are I've only seen one of these sell on eBay, and it sold for over $1,500.
Yeah, I believe it.
Yeah.
Believe
So,
it.
But these caps really don't belong in there, but I keep them on there just to keep the dust off the lenses.
Yeah.
That's neat. Yeah, that's kind of, I've got a lot of these, externally adjustable scopes, several, not a lot, but several. And this is kind of the rarest one I've got.
Yeah.
Most of them.
Getting back to the Japanese scopes, even like Tasco, they made some scopes that rivaled the German stuff that was coming out. So if you do your research on those, there's some bargains to be had out there on scopes. The other thing that we were talking about earlier, hadn't really planned on talking about this, but I bought some this Norma TAC 22.
Yeah.
And I shot it a bit, and it was fine. But you were saying that you thought this might have been actually what used to be Gecko. And
Several people in several forums have said that that is kind of the replacement for that Gecko. Kind of Gecko disappeared about 3-4 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, whatever, from the U.S. market, and then Norma started coming out,
yeah, it
becoming more
could be.
prevalent.
I'll
And
tell you what, this Gecko that I bought, I really like it.
yeah,
I shoot a lot of the Ely Club because it's fairly priced and very consistent. I don't know. I maybe had one like primer strike with
yeah,
it
I bought a
cycled.
case of that. I bought a case of that Gecko rifle. I don't know, probably 6-7 years ago now.
Yeah.
And I'm just actually getting down to where I've got 2 bricks left, or not, about a brick and a half now. I went out and shot 2 more boxes today, but I've got about a brick and a half of that Gecko rifle left. But I
Yeah.
have shot it side by side with that TAC 22, and it's very close. Just
Mhm.
uh, the the Gecko rifle is, it's not match grade ammo. It's not Elay 10X or Lapua
Right.
or anything like that. It's very good ammo though, and
Mhm.
just it didn't seem like the TAC 22 was quite as precise as
Yeah.
far as grouping goes. And but it's got the same head stamp. It's got the same type of lube on it as the each one does, and so, and I've also compared the Gecko match, because after I bought the Gecko rifle, I liked it so much I bought several bricks of the Gecko match, and I'm still
Mhm.
working off of that. And the Norma match, I think the Norma match is a lot closer to the Gecko match than the
Yeah.
Tech 22 is to the Gecko rifle. But
I'll have to run them side by side and see.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, the Gecko I was pleasantly surprised with, and I haven't shot a lot of this match 22 yet. Um, so we'll
I've
see.
only had a few boxes of it, but I did test it next to the Gecko match, and it was very close, if
Yeah.
not identical. So
Well, good deal,
it's
man.
tough
I
to
think
find good
we.
ammo in New York.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, I think we had a pretty good show here.
Yeah, yeah.
Guys, check out our channels, Nibs at Walnut and Steel, and then me, Jeremy, at Firearms and Fellowship. I do want to say I've got a Patreon. I don't know what I'm going to do with it yet, but if you guys want to throw a couple bucks into the kitty, that's a good way to do it. And we'll find some fun stuff to do over there, do some giveaways,
Yep.
and stuff like that.
Another one of those long
Oh
tube
yeah,
scopes.
I don't have one of those. I need to start looking around, see if I can find one.
Well, if you look around and you find one that needs some repairs, let me know. I can probably help
Yeah,
you out with that. These are
good
real
deal.
easy. So if you take this end piece off here, the crosshairs are just in a little piece right here, just inside. And that'll just pop right out. You can replace them. So you can I've actually used most of the repairs I've done. You use tungsten wire, and
Mhm.
but that's expensive, and it's very difficult to work with. And recently, I've actually found that you can use unwaxed dental floss, and it's it's actually stronger than the tungsten wire, believe it or not, and it's a lot easier to work with.
Huh.
Makes just as good a crosshairs. Once you put them in there and you look through it, you'll never know the difference. And
Yeah.
the dental floss is actually made out of the same uh, fibers that they make spider wire fishing line and Dyneema winch rope and stuff. Just super
Yeah.
strong fibers.
Huh.
You'll the scope will be crushed into a little ball before you break
Yeah.
those crosshairs. So that was a little trick I learned years ago, and it really does work.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Nibs, thanks for coming on, man.
Thanks
It's
for
always
having me
good.
on again. hopefully we can
Always
do
good
some
to
more in the
visit.
future.
Yeah, we'll have to do another Mossberg video, and I
I
think
still want to get on with George and
yeah,
the
yeah,
guys from RSA.
yeah, for sure, we'll do that.
And
I
I've
was
got
talking.
some really fun Remington stuff that we can talk about and see if
Yeah,
they've got any more information that I couldn't find.
I'm gonna have Roy Marco on pretty soon. He had a book uh, deal kicking off this past week, so he's been uh, kind of busy. But we'll get him on, and you want to learn about some Remington 22s. That's the guy to talk to. So
I know George is the Remington Society guy, but I know he does air guns too, and I'd like to get into a little side
yeah,
discussion about
yeah.
that too. So
Yeah, I'll talk to. We're gonna work something out where we can all three get on and talk
yeah,
air guns and
that'll
that
be fun.
kind of thing. So, all right, buddy, it's good visiting, and till
See you
next
guys
time.
soon.
All right, y'all. God bless.